mental health awareness. It's a topic that has become almost mainstream over the past few years. Yet many individuals do not really understand its importance. Hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another episode of the Game Changers podcast. My name is Quinn Seshis, and it's a privilege and pleasure to be here with you, as always. My next guest is a young lady who has a passion for mental health advocacy. Her name is Jaime Young, and we really delve into the different dynamics and nuances surrounding mental health awareness. Here is our amazing conversation. Hey, Jamie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am excellent. Particularly happy because
Great.
you are here finally on the podcast.
Finally. Took me long enough.
Yes. Took you very, very long, but better late than
Mhm.
never. Better late than never.
Right?
Uh, all right. So, just for starters, I'd like you to tell my audience a little bit about yourself, some general information.
Okay, so um my name is Jaime Young. I am a youth advocate by profession. I am a family caseworker here in St. Lucia, so I deal with vulnerable families in my day job. But what I like to call my side job is my volunteer work with mental health advocacy, all volunteer work. I volunteer with two organizations. Let's unpack it. And then I also work with youth reports as well. So I do mental health advocacy and then general youth work. So that's a little bit about me. I love Formula One. I love to read. I love listening to different things and gaining more knowledge in whatever way I can. And yeah, that's a bit about me.
Beautiful. Now, I know that you said that you basically help families in your day job, and then mental health is kind of a side thing that you do. Um, I'm guessing that for my audience sake at least, you can speak about your psychology background because people will wonder, okay, why or how is she
Yeah.
doing this? So you can speak a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, so for me, psychology, when you leave in secondary school, at that point, everybody decides that's where you really choose
Yeah.
what you do with your life. And it's like I always said I was very lucky to find what I wanted to do very early
Okay.
because from Form 5, I was like, okay, where do I go next? And I was like, well, I'm interested in people finding out why they want to do the things that they do. And naturally, psychology was the first option for me. And the more I delved into it, the more I got interested in it. And the love just continues to grow. So I started off as an author doing sociology because I went to A-level. They didn't have psychology at the time. So I figured socio was the next best thing. And through that, my passion for psychology and then mental health grew. So now, yes, in my day job, I work with vulnerable families. As you can imagine, there's a lot of psychology that goes into that. And I have a bachelor's of arts in psychology. I probably should have led with that, but that's my foundation. So that kind of led and pushed me on the mental health path, a mixture of personal experience and then my work in psychology. And yeah, so that's kind of how I got into that.
Okay, interesting. Now, I know that you focus on mental health in general, but particularly with young people. Why is it so important to you?
Yeah. I think, like you said, generally mental health is important. And within our region, I think there's still a lot more we need to be doing in general. But when I've had personal experiences, and I know persons who are youth and young people who also had personal experiences, and I don't want to say that it is worst, but it seemed like at the time when I got into this, that for some reason, our general consensus was that youth or young people, especially persons under the age of 16 or 15, don't have stress or mental health
Mm,
issues, as though a child in primary school, grade 6, cannot have these problems. So for me, I was like, okay, yes, mental health is an issue, but I think specifically youth finding those resources is even more of an issue. And then if we have to look at it long term, we're talking about our future politicians, our future leaders, our future teachers. Those are the people, our youth are the people who will become that. So if we want to ensure that we have a generation that is fit to lead and fit to work and to do better than what we have now, we have to ensure from the get-go and from the foundation that their mental health is sound and that they know how to cope. Because if the world is any indication, we're not going in the right direction.
Right.
So for me, that was a very big thing because I've always believed in solving the issue at its root.
Mm-hmm.
So we cannot expect, at 30 years old, you have a mental health issue that may have presented as young as 8 or 9.
Mm.
And there was no intervention at that age. And of course, it progresses. So that's why my focus is on the youth. A lot of things can be changed if we just focus on the root issue.
Okay, great. So I really like that you focus on, like I said, the root cause of the issue, and then we're going to move on to where this issue can lead to as an adult eventually. But before we go any further, I want to ask you, what do you think is the most pressing issue facing today's youth in terms of mental
Honestly,
health?
yeah, I would say anxiety and depression. Now, I know we hear
Okay.
those two words a lot, but actually,
Yes.
statistically speaking, anxiety and depression accounts for almost 50% of mental health disorders among
Hmm.
adolescents ages 10 to about 19 in the Latin America and the Caribbean. That's an actual statistic from the State of the World's Children. It was one of
Hmm.
the reports that UNICEF did 2021. So even before I read that, if you just pay attention, like I said, it's two words that we hear a lot. Youth go
Yep.
through a lot of things, especially within the ages of 8 and 14. You have a lot of changes happening internally. Then, when you add family dynamic changes, divorces, extended families, disruptions at home, you add all these things, and the anxiety levels can go up. And, we know what depression is. So, I think that's the main issue with youth right now. Anxiousness is a feeling, but to have that prolonged state of anxiety or the prolonged depression that we see presenting a lot with youth and adolescents, it is worrying. So yeah, that would be the biggest issue I would see.
Hmm. Interesting. Now you spoke about divorces, and you kind of touched on parents a little bit. But how can these individuals, the adults often in the room, better support people struggling with their mental health? Because I feel like that's a big thing. So tell me
Yeah,
how.
it is a big thing because, I mean, let's be real. How many of us within this region can just walk up to our very Caribbean parents and say, "Man, I'm struggling with my mental health today," and
Right.
get like the most positive response? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying it to bash parents or to bash teachers or leaders or anyone. It is
Yeah.
so ingrained in who we are. It is so socialized into us to believe that we need to be strong, and that being strong
Yeah.
means not being having any mental issues, when your mental health is a part of your overall health. And we all know if you're not good mentally, eventually your body takes a toll and etc. So the first step I would say is to become more receptive to the idea of, hey, mental health is a real issue. And just because somebody is struggling today, it does not make them weak. And we all have a part to play in it. Because we will see things on social media. Let's say a man is crying and immediately everybody's laughing. Hey, I'm to
Yeah.
down, and we're not taking into consideration, wait, it's okay for somebody to be having negative feelings and thoughts. Another thing I think we need to be looking at is that, again, youth have issues too. A lot of the things that children go through. So, for example, I touched on divorce before. You have a family, parents going through a divorce. There are negative feelings between the parents and it's not working out well. There's always arguments, they can't handle each other. The children in the
Yeah.
household are also part of this negative environment, yet still they are expected to come out A-OK and positive and not have any issues.
Yep.
Whereas the parents are struggling every day. So it's not fair. So I think having that idea that people have mental issues. We go through a lot. The world has, in a sense, to me, fast forwarded in the past 4 or 5 years. Things are much, much quicker paced. We're going to have those. And let's not even talk about climate change. We're in hurricane season. Your house can be gone tomorrow. And
Yep.
we're expecting youth and young people to just be like, oh yeah, that's okay. So I think being open to that idea, and of course the same will cry more resources. Where do you go
Mm-hmm.
where do you go if you have a problem? You don't know because where are the resources? If you don't have to pay exorbitant amounts for a psychologist, then there's nothing
Right.
there for you. So I think those things can hopefully start us moving in a better direction when it comes to mental health.
Absolutely. And a while ago you spoke about, how children often are expected to just survive and do well in unfavorable situations. And it's often said that the children become the broken pieces in a home when it falls apart, because often,
Mhm.
I mean, they might not understand the entire dynamic, but they are placed in a situation where they now have to face this challenge. Oftentimes it feels like it's on their own, because each parent takes their own personal
Yeah.
side, and the child is left
Left to fend
without
for themselves.
anybody to guide them,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's a very, very important thing.
Yeah.
Everybody in this psychology field that I speak to um point to this as one of the main problems: parenting
Hmm.
and family dynamics in general. Because sometimes parents don't really even understand the importance of the role
Yeah.
that they play. Because sometimes I think that parents believe that, okay, I gave birth to you, my job is basically done, I give you food, maybe
Hmm.
that's it,
I
my job is
provide
done,
for
I've done
you.
my job.
You have a roof over your head. You have food. You're going to school. You're fine.
Yeah,
And that is where the
yeah.
problem lies.
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely. So often, I guess, it's not that it's in the fact that they think that they're doing good enough,
right.
instead of thinking of what we can do better. And I think that's very
Yeah.
important for children, for parents rather, to focus on how they are affecting their children, because
Hmm.
often they do so, and to be fair to them, they might not even know that they're doing it, right? So I think that's
Yeah.
very, very important.
Definitely.
Okay, so we know that we live in the 21st century, and social media and technology is all around us. You kind of spoke about it a while ago, the analogy of a young man crying online, or so on and so forth. How does social media and technology play into mental well-being of young people today?
Hmm. That was always a touchy question. And I've had this question more than once. In almost every conversation I have, this is technology is the first thing that they ask about. But a lot of times the answer is usually negative. Oh, there's so much that people see online. And I will say it's twofold in my opinion. It can be negative, especially with the ages of course, we have to speak about maturity and ages of the youth using it. They're exposed to a lot. And if you are not mature enough to discern, okay, this is for me and this may not be for me, it can cause issues. Of course, I can understand if we're talking about self efficacy or self esteem. We see a lot of perfect bodies, perfect lifestyles, perfect families, but we know that's not really the case. And that obviously can have an effect on mental health and how youth and young adults feel about each other. However, I will say there's a lot more resources out there for free on the internet for mental health and for just knowledge in a sense. So you need help. You can Google right now coping strategies for youth and young adults, and you get a ton of resources, websites, activities. So it can be negative, but I always like to focus on the positive and say it can also be very positive. 10, 15 years ago, if you didn't have money to go to a psychologist, that was it. There was nothing else. You don't know, you just move along. But now it's literally at your fingertips. You can get some sort of help to help you along the way. So I think, like any tool, it's just basically how you use it for you.
Absolutely. And I really like that you chose to go down that route, because, like you said, often
Hmm.
we speak of social media in these settings, we often focus on, what it has done bad, right? Or affected us.
Right.
But I see, and like you rightfully said, there are so many resources online these days. And the whole concept of mental health as well, um, probably didn't exist in our minds
Hmm.
um before social media, right? The whole
Right. Yeah.
concepts of it was at least not mainstream
Hmm.
before social media. So I think we as individuals, as modern people, need to understand that it has played a positive role sometimes, while it might not always be positive,
Yeah.
right? there are positive elements of it, and you just need to learn how to use it
Mhm.
positively.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, definitely.
absolutely. All right. So we're moving on to what I would deem my favorite segment of a Game Changers podcast. That is the segment called the Quick Hitters. Now, this segment will tell my viewers a little bit more about Jamie, the individual, rather than Jamie, the I guess the mental health
Yeah.
advocate.
Okay.
Right?
Mhm.
All right. So, first quick hitter question:
Mhm.
what do you like to do to unwind?
Mm, I like to journal. I like to
Okay.
read. And of course I'll throw Netflix in there, but I'll say journaling and reading.
All
My two my two
right.
biggest
Cool.
things.
Okay. Absolutely great. Um. Next quick hitter question, and that might be a more difficult question. You know, your good friend Ryan kind of struggled with this question.
Ah,
Who, who is your hero?
it is a difficult question because
Yeah, I know it is.
there are so many people that I would say have influenced me.
Mm,
Um and you can look at this from different angles. But I'll say, somebody that I look up to is somebody that is famous and whatever is, and if you follow me on social media, you probably know, is Sir Lewis
mm,
Hamilton. He is a Formula
mm,
One driver. And my goodness, he's an inspiring person. He had a hard upbringing, but he's always positive, he's very successful. And yeah, it's just somebody I was like, wow, I aspire to inspire the way that he does. So let's just go with that for now.
okay, cool. Somehow I'm not surprised that is a F1 connection here, but
Yeah,
I,
you know me.
I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll absolutely take it. Okay,
Hmm.
beautiful. Moving on to my final quick hitter question.
Hmm.
Who would you like to see on Game Changers?
Easy, Julian Alfred. Next.
Oh,
I
everybody
want to
say,
see her.
everybody say Juju,
I'm
right?
serious.
I know you are. I know you are, and I am as well. Hopefully we can actually get her on.
I hope so.
That is one of my dream guests because I think she's a big inspiration across the board.
Yeah,
I
she's
mean,
a
not
big.
just for males or females,
Hmm.
not just for St. Lucians, just people in general. Because
Right.
she has achieved so much and she's so humble about it,
Yeah.
right? So I think that might definitely be
She's
a dream
definitely,
guest
yeah, she's a game changer. I think you
for
need to
sure,
you need to have
for
her.
sure. For sure, absolutely, absolutely. All right, so let's move on. We're moving on
Yep.
to the back end of the interview.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the warning signs that a young person who may be struggling with their mental health might portray? So,
Mm,
as somebody who is a friend looking from the distance, what are some of the
right.
warning signs?
Yeah. Warning signs will be different. I'll start with this preface. Warning signs will be different for everybody. And not because what I'm going to say, if you see your friend doing those things, you mean, oh my gosh, she has a mental health disorder. But
Yeah.
some signs I would say, for example, loss of interest in things that they usually like. So they
Mm,
usually love football. All of a sudden, they're not going to football anymore. Feelings of sadness or loneliness. That one is a bit difficult because sometimes they're not very expressive of it, but sometimes it can come out. Substance abuse, drugs and alcohol. We know how that goes. Not sleeping or not sleeping well. Declining performances, whether that be in schoolwork or at if they're working already. Yeah, so then you have also always worried or fearful more than usual. So you have some people who are just
mm.
naturally worried or fearful, but if you notice this person was never really like that, and then they're all of a sudden always worried or fearful, then that could be a sign that they're struggling with something mental health related. So these are a few. Of course, there are a laundry list of them, but these are some of the main ones.
Yeah. So, is it right to say then that warning signs may vary from person to person? Given
Yeah, definitely.
whatever the issue is. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it could be the issue or it could be based on personality as well. So, for example, if you have
Okay.
somebody who doesn't eat much. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
they eat a lot, sometimes they don't eat at all. If one
Right.
month you realize they're not eating a lot, you can't just jump to the conclusion, oh, you're depressed or you're
And
sad.
say mental health. You're right.
Because there's a pattern. Sometimes they do, sometimes we're talking about essentially we're saying a break in pattern, a random
Okay.
change in any pattern, whether it's you sleep well and all of a sudden you don't, you eat a lot, all of a sudden you don't, you always happy, all of a sudden you're not. So it's that random break-in pattern that cannot be explained
Mm-hmm.
with anything else.
Absolutely, absolutely. So,
Yeah.
so I guess it's then important to follow the trends
Yeah, you
in
have
your
to know the
friends
person.
and family members.
Yes.
Yeah,
You need to know who you're
absolutely,
dealing with because mine, what might be a trigger for me or a sign for me may not be for you. So,
absolutely.
yeah.
I like that. I like that. So and I also want to add in here. It's often said, well, at least in recent times, that it's important to check on your strong friends, because
Yes.
sometimes I feel like strong people are, or people who are perceived to be strong at least,
Hmm.
um struggle with mental health issues, and they go unchecked because people assume that things are
You
going well in
okay?
their lives. Yeah.
Hmm. Definitely.
So
You struggling there bad, you crying every night, but you wake up on a morning and you're positive and people just assume,
uh,
oh, there's nothing wrong with her. And a lot of the time, strong friends take on the issues of everybody else. So even
mhm,
that in itself is a lot of mental strain and stress that can happen to them.
beautiful, beautiful. I would agree with that 100%. So
Yeah.
yes, guys,
Check on
remember
your
to
strong
check on your
friends.
strong friends. Yeah.
Hmm.
All right. Next question. In terms of schools, now we know that these institutions tend to be the place where, at least at a tender age, young people spend their most time.
Hmm.
Right? So how can schools create a more supportive environment for students dealing with mental health challenges?
I like that you started by saying that's a place that they spend the most time because for
Yeah.
most of my little small career in advocacy I've had, one of my biggest things is that we need to be putting more resources in the school because of that. Children
Mm-hmm.
spend most of their time there, and yet still we're under resourced. Teachers have to play the roles of parents, counselors, teachers, all kind of things. They're not qualified for that, and we love them for it. But in a lot of those situations, teachers are first responders to a lot of mental health situations. So I think one of the things that we need to do is we need to build capacity in our schools first and foremost. We need to take it seriously. We need to stop talking and we need to start acting. And that's not really for the teachers. I would throw this to the policymakers and the people in the higher ups that can make those decisions. You cannot have one guidance counselor for a district. That does not make sense. You cannot have one guidance counselor for 100, 200 children. That cannot work. It
Right.
cannot work. It is not enough. Furthermore, I'll say we need more specialized assistance. You need child psychologists because guidance and counseling is completely different to child psychology. They do two different things. Counseling, not every child needs counseling. Some children need diagnosis. Who's going to do that? So we need to be able to build a capacity. So we talked about counselors, teachers, I would say, even parents to an extent. I would really advocate for something called psychological first aid. So it's basically first aid, but for mental health. Seeing warning signs, knowing how to deal with little things, because yes, the teachers will be more, in most cases, first point of contact for a lot of those things. So I think it would be best if we give them, and the training is not a long training. It can be a short training that we can build that capacity. And then I would say too, we need to do a re-education, have mental health be something that's spoken about openly in schools. I remember when I was in school, you have a Red Cross, you have Pay Helpers. They have a lot of little groups and so on,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes dress down. They have mental health days. Teach students,
Mm-hmm.
take the time out from classes and so on to teach students how to healthily cope with stress. I remember at
Absolutely.
UE, and I think at South as well, we would have these stress days on campus, like just before
Yeah.
exams.
Exams.
There's no
Mm-hmm.
classes. You just go and play games or so on. These are the little things that we can be adopting to teach students. It is not just about saying mental health is important. You have to do it. And I'll end with lead by example, because a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
times we say mental health is important, and then some of us adults are the ones laughing or we're the ones not taking it serious. We go in and we tell the children, oh, take care of your mental health. And then when they come or we hear of a situation, what happened to you? You have no stress. Da, 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 da.
Yeah,
You have to lead by example. You cannot say one thing and do something else. It needs to be deliberate, and it needs to be something that we are focusing on, and we are trying to ensure that children see that we're leading by example.
absolutely. Now, I want to talk about the flip side as well, because sometimes I feel like those who are the helpers, as in whether that be teachers, parents, psychologists, need mental health help themselves. So
Mhm.
how do we then find that balance
Yeah,
as well? Who's going to help the helpers?
yeah. And I think that's another a part where you have to be really introspective and realize when you can't. As a
Mm,
helper, I think it's our one of our fatal flaws that we try to help as much as we can, even when we
mhm,
do not have capacity to help. And as a helper, you have to understand when you yourself need the help. So, in as much as, as a I'm not a psychologist yet, but I aim to be. But one of the
okay.
things that you have to do is if you're a counselor, you also need mandatory counseling,
Mhm,
because you're taking on all these negative issues. You need to also offload. You need to debrief, we call it. So I think teachers, even if they're not counselors, some of us get a lot of these issues because children feel very comfortable in speaking to us, and that's very important. If you're a child safe space, I commend you. And because that's a really important thing. But you also need to recognize when it's time for you to say, I do not have capacity to deal with this right now.
absolutely.
Let me take a break, let me stand back, and then I will come back when I have the time or when I'm able to do so. Because sometimes you can do more harm because you're overburdened than if you say, you know what, let me take a step back and I'll come back when I'm able.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's important to know, like you said, when to take a step back and to give somebody else an avenue or an opportunity to take over if you can.
Yeah,
Because, yeah, we are only human and there's only so
of
much we can do.
course.
Yeah.
Especially
So,
the way that we're going, there's a lot of problems for everybody. So, you have to know when to stop.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Hmm.
Absolutely. All right. How do you think the stigma? I mean, we know that there's still a stigma. How do you think that the stigma surrounding mental health, particularly in the Caribbean, how do you think about it in the Caribbean context, affects young people seeking help?
It's probably the biggest issue. I'll
Okay.
be honest. And I'll say this. You can have, currently, I want to say for our listeners, we do not have this, but let's just say you have a mental health resource in every
Mm-hmm.
community. And I'm talking the book, a psychologist, a counselor, everything in every community in St. Lucia. If the stigma is as bad as it is, nobody's going to go. So the resources is not going to make sense, because
Mm-hmm.
one of the biggest things for mental health is that you, the person suffering, need to take it on yourself to go. It will not work. Counseling will not work if you don't want it to work. And going to find that help, you won't go if you feel like, if I walk out of a mental health facility, I come out from the wellness center and somebody see me, everything they're going to say, hey, y'all didn't see Jamie coming out of the wellness center. What happened to her?
Yeah.
Countless times we've heard, hey, but I saw so and so, that person crazy or that person have that
Mm-hmm.
problem. We cannot have that type of attitude when people are going to seek help, because in left to
Absolutely.
me alone, I'm not going if you are going to call me crazy. Because that's going to
Mm-hmm.
affect my life, my work life,
Yep.
my family life, and so on. Why would I do that? So mental health is the biggest thing. Again, it's not very welcome. The conversation around youth and mental health is not, the best. So for young people, if I go and tell my mother I depressed, she's going to laugh at me. The school counselor, yes, some people have their whether they want to go or not for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
Where are they going to go? Resources or no
Yeah.
resources, they're not going to go. So I think stigma is, in my opinion, and I've been advocating for this for a while, is the biggest issue that we face right now. And it's so funny because I'm in a network with so many other young mental health advocates throughout the region, and we all have the same idea about it. It's the same in Barbados, in Suriname, in Trinidad. So it's definitely a regional issue.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, so then how that can we start breaking that stigma? I know you kind of spoke about it a little bit before, but
Hmm.
tell me a little bit more. How can we start breaking
Yeah.
that stigma?
It's an unlearning, just like with socialization, because you socialize to believe one thing. So now you have to unlearn in a sense and re-educate of what it is. We need to be teaching what mental health is and what it is not. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
that expertise will come from mental health professionals and maybe persons who have experience in that field. Um, but I like to use the example of we're about the same age. So there was a point in time
Mm-hmm.
where HIV and AIDS there was a big stigma.
Yeah,
Like children didn't want to sit next to people didn't want to touch you, that type of thing. Look at us now. I don't know when last I heard about it in the region because I
that's very
remember
true.
there was a concert on the radio, there was infomercials, there were drives, there were all kind of things to teach people what it actually was. I would like to say that's what we have to do with mental health. We need to be teaching people. We need to put, and I think it's just that we don't think it's serious enough
Mm-hmm.
because HIV/AIDS was very serious, as it should have been, and we did what we had to do to get people to understand it. Now we need to do the same thing with mental health. We need to be on the radios. We need to be campaigning. We need to be putting up infomercials. We need to have the professionals out there, and we need to teach people what it is and what it's not, because that's the only way we're going to break the stigma. So once we can do that, and again, I'll keep saying this: we have to lead by example. We cannot say one thing, and then when we have real life examples showing up on social media, we laughing and we kicking at people who are going through
Yeah.
real, actual issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, like, I like that you said that it's an unlearning, and well, we do know that unlearning takes time because you
Yeah.
have to
And learning harder than
unknow
learning.
what you did. Yes, it is.
Yes.
It
It's
is
harder
very
than
much.
learning.
It is very
So,
much. So yeah,
yeah.
I mean, we have
It's
to be
like breaking a
patient, but at the
pattern.
same time,
Yeah.
we
So
need to be
give
aggressive with it.
grace,
Yeah,
but you have to do it aggressively, like you said, for
yeah.
it to make sense, because you can't do it slow, 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 because it will be
Mhm.
counterproductive. Yeah.
For sure, for sure. All right, so we're moving on to the back end. Um, what advice will you give to young people who are hesitant to speak about their mental health?
This is going to sound very cliche,
Hmm.
but I will say be the change that you want to see.
Okay.
Reason being, like we said, this whole movement of advocacy and mental health, it cannot just be one of us talking about it. It
Hmm.
cannot just be me screaming from the hilltops. It has to be everybody together, because that's how things change. So you may not be able to be a mental health advocate for St. Lucia, but you can be a mental health advocate for your friend. You can be a mental
Hmm.
health advocate for yourself. You can even be a mental health advocate for the stranger that is sitting next to you. I'm a big fan. A lot of the times that I speak up, I'm not speaking up for myself. I'm speaking up for the person next to me, who I
Hmm.
used to be. There were times in my life where I could not speak up for myself, and I used to pray somebody would speak up for me because I wanted
Hmm.
to. So from now, I you need to be that advocate for somebody else, because that's the only way that we're all going to move forward. So yes, it is tough. Yes, it might be something that you struggle with, but as much as possible, do the work so that the generations after us can have maybe something else easier than we had. So be the change you want to see, and be nice to people. I don't think
Yes,
we're nice enough.
yes.
Give people
We're not.
grace,
Yeah,
a little bit
most
of
times
grace.
as Caribbean people, we're not nice at all.
Yeah.
Not just nice enough. No, we're not nice at all.
So
So I
yeah,
think that's
definitely
important.
that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
All
man.
right. My final question to you will be one that you can showcase what work you are currently doing that many people don't know about,
Mhm.
because I think that that's part of the issue. It's not that people do not know about mental health now, because I think it's everybody's speaking about it. Often we
Mhm.
do not understand, what goes on behind the scenes to facilitate these things. So I know that you spoke about Let's Unpack It and other initiatives that you are part of. So
Mhm.
tell me some of the things that are going on right now and how people can become a part of it.
Yeah. So right now we have some things coming up that I can't really talk about for reasons,
Okay.
but I
All
will
right.
say stay tuned to see what we have a lot coming out in the ending of this month and into next month. But one thing that I do want to plug in here is that the work that Lex and Pocket has done so far, we have come up with a youth directory of sorts called Young Caribbean Minds that you can just go onto any browser and you can get onto. So what it is a workbook and a directory for mental health resources throughout the region. A bunch of us worked on it. So you just go to youngcaribbeanminds.com and you'll be able to see a mental health workbook. So on days where, youth or young people, you're not feeling too good, the workbook has
Mhm.
little activities. There are games on the web page, resources, breathing exercises, that we all worked on together. There's also a mental health directory per country within the region. So if you actually are struggling and you need professional assistance, you know exactly where to go for the country that you're in. So it's one of the things that we're really super proud of. We have some webinars and some seminars coming up. Last month was suicide awareness month, or this month, I think September was. So we had some stuff, some flyers going out. So there's some stuff coming. I don't want to preempt because
Right,
it
right.
is not yet out there, but we have a lot coming up, and I definitely say to stay tuned. Follow Let's Unpack It if you can, and follow me. Yeah, so you can see.
Absolutely. And how can people get in contact with you then?
Best way to get in contact with me is on my Instagram at
Mhm.
jyoung JAIIYOUNGG, and my contact information is on there, my email and so on. So you can definitely get in touch with me if you have any mental health questions, queries, or anything that you'd like to collaborate on. I'm always willing to get the word out there. It's something I'm very passionate about.
Absolutely. We can hear that that's something
Yeah,
that you're very
I hope
passionate
so.
about. so S- so yes, for
Yeah,
sure,
man.
and I'll keep the links. I'll put the links in the bio, so anybody who
Great.
watches the episode can have easy access to your platform. Jamie, and to thank you so much for coming
No
on.
problem. It was great.
I want to encourage you because I know that this work that you do can often go unnoticed.
Yeah.
And I want to encourage you to continue doing it because eventually people will understand the importance of this work. Years from now, down the future, people will grasp the importance of this work because in our modern age, as we develop and as technology and everything develops, mental health awareness will become one of the most important topics in our world. And I genuinely believe that. So the more you speak on it, the more you give us the opportunity to understand the importance of these things, the more individuals would grasp it and know how to do um I guess know how to utilize the information
Yeah.
in their own lives. So and to
Thank
thank you
you.
for what you do. Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much for
much.
what you do. And don't be a stranger. You can come back
No,
whenever you
man.
want.
Whenever I'm there, man.
Yeah, that
Thank
sounds
you for
very
having
sarcastic.
me. No, I'm
It sounds
serious.
sarcastic.
Don't kill me. Whenever you're ready, maybe when we have some more initiatives, I'll come back on and I'd love to explain that and talk about it. But thank you for having me. It was a great time. I hope the listeners enjoyed.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I enjoyed. I do this for me as well, so I
Yeah,
enjoyed it. So I hope that they did as well. All right, guys. So
yeah,
this has been yet another episode of the Game Changers podcast. And to thank you for coming on. Thank you for spending this time with us. Remember to check on your mental health. I just want to end with this. I think it's
yeah,
important that you personally check on your mental health. I wish that more people would do so. I know I have to do it more often, right? Because I am so, focused on developing myself and helping others that I don't think of, what I have to do for me. So if that's one word of encouragement I want to leave with you, check on your mental health. Remember that Game Changers is available across all platforms. Like and subscribe this video because there is more content, more amazing guests coming out. And yes, follow Game Changers. Download the episode on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you can listen on the go. I know that Game Changers are very busy people. So if you want to listen to this episode, if you want to be inspired, Remember to download the episodes on audio streaming platforms and listen on your commute to work. I think that there's a lot of information in here that you can utilize in your daily life. Anyhow, this is the end of another episode, and to thank you for coming on. And as usual, stay hungry, and I'll see you next time.